So just a few days ago, the Pokemon Company and Nintendo invited a lot of the press, media, YouTubers, and influencers to play a little bit of Pokemon Legends ZA and share their thoughts on how they feel with the preview of the game. And I'm sure you guys saw a lot of videos that had come out and articles of people talking about their experience. And from all of this, we can actually learn a lot of new details about the game and information that we previously didn't know. But the information is pretty much scattered everywhere as there's so many different videos that are on it. There's a lot of different articles. So I took the time for the past few days after they happened to really just compile all of the information together, learn about pretty much everything that people said in their articles and the videos about all the new stuff, and make one giant video, which I have for you guys right here, about all of the new information that we learned from the Pokemon Legends ZA previews. And there's actually a lot of information here to talk about, some small details, some big things, so definitely grab a snack and get cozy. Now real quick before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that I am partnering with Walmart for the launch of Pokemon Legends ZA, where if you click from the links below in the description, you can pre-order Pokemon Legends ZA for the Nintendo Switch or even the Nintendo Switch 2 edition and end up supporting the channel, so I would really appreciate that. And Walmart's actually doing something amazing, which is anybody who pre-orders Pokemon Legends ZA from them is going to receive a starter pin for one of the starter Pokemon that appears inside of the game. So if you want a chance to get that awesome bonus as well, I would really appreciate it if you pre-order using the links below in the description. Alright, so the very first thing that we learned is that the way that your trainer arrives to Lumio City is actually by a train, and you pretty much just arrive into the city and have everything unfold there. So it seems like you might just be moving into the city or maybe doing something like that. It seems very simple compared to like Pokemon Legends Arceus, where you literally had like a void cutscene with Arceus at the very start of the game who sent you back in time into the past. Doesn't seem like it's going to be anything crazy like that. It seems like you pretty much just arrive into Lumio City on a train. It looks like the starter Pokemon are going to have like a little mini plot to them before you actually get to choose one. It kind of probably is going to be like Pokemon Legends Arceus, or if you remember, they started that game, you also had like a little tutorial where you got to learn how to catch Pokemon, and you got to see like Rowlet and Cyndaquil and Oshawott kind of just running around in little places and stuff. I feel like it's probably going to be something like that. Alpha Pokemon are once again returning from Pokemon Legends Arceus, but it seems like after you defeat an Alpha Pokemon, you only get one opportunity to catch that Pokemon, and if it breaks free from the Pokeball, it's just gonna disappear, so it might not actually be worth trying to like weaken them all the way down to fainting them, because then you only get one opportunity. Maybe just get them to like red HP and keep throwing Pokeballs until you catch it. That might be the move. There's an eyeball meter at the top that's going to extend more and more outwards the more you get into the line of sight of an enemy like a trainer or a Pokemon, and that's how you know you're going to be approaching danger. Now in the ZA Royale mode, you're going to see like these blue hovering ticket stations, which are going to be in the area where you're battling all of the other trainers, and these stations are going to give you like these extra side quests and missions, and doing them can award you extra tickets while you're battling the other trainers. So some of these can be something like knock out a Pokemon using a water attack, or sneak up on a Pokemon and knock them out with just one hit. You can even stack them, so like if you got both of those quests, you can knock out a Pokemon using a water attack and sneaking up, and that's going to count for both of them, so that's really cool. And the more tickets that you get, the faster you get to your promotion match. And speaking of promotion matches, these are basically like the mini boss fights where you have to defeat a trainer in order to rank up from Z all the way up to rank A, and it looks like these trainers are going to provide a little bit more of a challenge than just some of the other trainers that you're going to have in the ZA Royale, and it seems like they're not even going to be locked to using just a certain kind of Pokemon. So like in the example that they showed, it seemed like it was a waiter who was using Simisage, Simisear, and Simipour, and so they're all the elemental monkeys, but they're not like set to one type only. And it seems like it was kind of referencing like the Gen 5 waiters with like Silent Crest and Chili, as they're also waiters who use the elemental monkeys with Pansage, Panpour, and Pansear inside of Pokemon Black and White. So maybe they're all going to be kind of like cool references to other things, but it seems like these are going to be kind of like your mini boss fights where you have to defeat these trainers in order to rank up. Now in traditional turn-based Pokemon battles, switching out your Pokemon basically gives your opponent a free turn as you use up your turn to switch out the Pokemon, and then they get to attack, and it seems like it's kind of going to be similar to that even with the real-time battle system of Pokemon Legends ZA, as when you switch in a new Pokemon, that brand new Pokemon that you send out is going to have every single one of its moves start at 0 cooldown, so you still have to wait for all of those moves to charge up, which is going to give your opponent a pretty big window to attack, so it's still seems like they're kind of keeping that from the traditional games. Now, if you're battling wild Pokemon and you lower its HP and weaken it, if you decide to run away or escape if it's getting too hectic, that is going to reset the Pokemon back to full HP. I saw some people kind of complaining about this, but this is kind of a very simple like JRPG element that's in pretty much every other game. Like in any game where there's like a big area with like lots of monsters and things to kill, if you get the HP of something down and then decide to kind of escape or run away, then obviously when you come back, that thing is going to be at full health again, so it just seems like Pokemon is doing the same exact thing. Now, it seems like there might be a lot of different types of obstacles all throughout the city, and you're going to need a bunch of different kinds of Pokemon to traverse through them, as in one of the examples, somebody was saying that there was like a lot of mud and like sludge that was on the ground, and they were able to send in a water Pokemon that basically used a water attack to wash all of that away so that they could get through the area and see what was there, and that makes me think that maybe there's going to be like a lot of different types of like obstacles where maybe you need like a grass Pokemon or a fire Pokemon or something to be able to get through these, so that could be kind of interesting for some of the exploration still in the city. A few people did mention that there aren't really as many additional catching items as there were in Pokemon Legends Arceus. So inside of that game, you had like the mud balls and lots of other like things that you could throw with like the berries and things to be able to like help you catch Pokemon easier. And in this game, it seems like you pretty much just have Pokeballs and just very simple items. Now, it could be that maybe as you progress more into the game, you actually unlock other things to use to catch Pokemon, or maybe it's just going to be kind of very simple because this is like a modern Pokemon styled game instead of like Pokemon Legends Arceus, which was in the past. Now, none of the previews got any official information about how shiny Pokemon work inside of this game, and if it has like that sound effect that plays inside of Pokemon Legends Arceus when there's a shiny Pokemon nearby, but it seems like one of the previews did mention that the Nintendo rep said that a lot of fans are going to be very happy when they were asked about if there's going to be a sound and how shiny Pokemon are going to work. Also returning from Pokemon Legends Arceus is the drowsy status effect, so this was basically there in place of sleep when you use sleep-inducing moves, and so it seems like it's going to be the same case in Pokemon Legends ZA as well, and so when you have this status effect, it's basically like sometimes they might not attack, sometimes they do attack. I'm guessing this also probably means you're not going to be able to have frozen Pokemon either, and they're probably going to have the frostbite status effect that's going to return. There's also no fall damage in Pokemon Legends ZA. I think this was also pretty much how it was in Scarlet and Violet, where if you tried to jump off of a high place, then your Rotom phone would kind of catch you and you would just float down. So it seems like it's the same exact thing inside of this game. It seems different because I think in Pokemon Legends Arceus there was fall damage, so you couldn't just like jump off of a mountain because you would actually take damage. So this time around it seems like you can jump off buildings and do whatever you want and your Rotom phone is going to catch you. One of the coolest things that people discovered is that you can actually use the environment to your advantage inside of battles in this game. So like in the example that they said, I think it was like a flamethrower that was coming at them and they went behind like a bench or a trash can or something, and that was able to like block the attack. So you can actually use that if you're battling in like an area where there's different things nearby, and you can use like lampposts or benches and things to avoid getting hit by stuff. So that is pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of like the quick thinking that happened a lot in the anime. When one of your Pokemon gets knocked out and you're about to send in another Pokemon, it actually looks like you're going to have a timer now for how quickly you have to decide which Pokemon you want to send in next. So I do kind of wonder what happens if the timer runs out all the way. Is it just going to like send whatever Pokemon your cursor is on, or just randomly choose for you? I guess they're kind of just doing that because they don't want you to be sitting there for like an entire hour deciding like what Pokemon to send in next, and they want to keep all the battles really fast paced. Trainer damage is also returning from Legends Arceus, so wild Pokemon can just straight up attack you as the trainer, and if you take enough damage then you're gonna black out and you're gonna have to heal all your Pokemon after. So I am glad that that is also returning, because that really added a lot of realism to Legends Arceus with a lot of the violent Pokemon that would go after you and chase you and stuff, so that is gonna be a lot of fun to still have that inside of this game as well. And it looks like that wild Pokemon are even going to start attacking you as the trainer if your Pokemon is distracted by battling someone else. So if other wild Pokemon see you nearby and they know your Pokemon is busy battling something else, they're going to straight up go for you. So I think that that's going to add some difficulty as well, and that is really cool. Now, in addition to Pokemon centers, it looks like cafes are going to be like the main thing for how you heal your Pokemon. So there's going to be a lot of different cafes all throughout the city, and you guys have seen these inside of the trailers where like the trainer is sitting and the Pokemon is with them. So you're going to be able to use these cafes to heal up your Pokemon. Also, returning from Legends Arceus is sending out your Pokemon to help you collect items. So like inside of Pokemon Legends Arceus, you would send out like your Pokemon to get like apricorns and things from trees and stuff, and it seems like you can still do that inside of this game, so that's really good. Now, something that's amazing is that inside of the Rogue Mega Pokemon boss battles, you can actually Mega Evolve your Pokemon more than one time, and even Mega Evolve different Pokemon, so that's going to be a lot of fun, as in traditional Pokemon battles with the turn base, you can only Mega Evolve one Pokemon per battle, but in this game, you can bring in like an Aerodactyl, an Alakazam, a Gengar, anything you want, and just keep Mega Evolving as long as you meet the requirements, so that's going to be pretty fun inside of these boss fights. And speaking of the Rogue Mega Pokemon, it looks like defeating this is going to award you with the Mega Stone for that Pokemon. So in some of the Rogue battles that we've seen so far, like with Dragonite, we've seen it with Victory Bell, Absol, if you're looking to get the Mega Stones for these Pokemon, it looks like this is going to be the method, so that is going to be the case. I'm sure there's not going to be a Rogue Mega battle for every single Pokemon that can Mega Evolve, so I'm sure some are just going to be like items that you have to convert or find or something, but for a lot of them, I'm guessing with some of the new Mega Evolutions for sure, those are going to be done through the boss fights, and that is how you're going to get the Mega Stone. Now, I think this was in Legends Arceus as well, but the boosts that you get from stat buffs and debuffs are only going to last for a short amount of time, so if you use like Swords Dance in a traditional Pokemon game, as long as you don't switch out, you have the boosted attack forever until your Pokemon faints, but inside of this game, if you use a Swords Dance, you're only going to have that boosted attack for a little bit, and then the meter is going to deplete, and you would have to use Swords Dance again if you want the boosted attack. And speaking of stat changes, those are displayed above the health bars for your Pokemon and the opponent with like these triangles that are pointing up or down for if the stat is being boosted or if it's being debuffed, and it goes in order of attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed. I kind of wish there was like an icon or some letters or something to make it easier to tell, because you can't always remember like really quickly which one is which, but either way there is some type of indicator to tell you what stat is boosted or which one is debuffed. Just like Pokemon Legends Arceus, there are no abilities inside of this game, but your Pokemon is going to be able to hold items because of Mega Evolution, as you need to give it the Mega Stone, but it seems like you can also have other things that you can give them like berries, hopefully other items as well, so that's pretty nice. But yeah, you're not going to have abilities, so I kind of do wonder how that's going to work for certain Pokemon that actually rely on their ability, especially for like their Mega Evolution. Like Mega Mawile, if it doesn't have huge power, I feel like it's not going to do anything good, but maybe they kind of thought of that and just have like these stat buffs and things get completely rechanged for how it works inside of this game. I hope that that's the case. And just like Legends Arceus, natures are still going to be in this game, so you will be able to see like if your Pokemon is an adamant nature or modest, and like what stats are being boosted and decreased depending on that. It looks like the ZA Royale areas are basically sectioned off inside of the city, and those areas only become accessible at night. So essentially certain areas are only going to be accessible in the day with like the wild zones for catching Pokemon, and then those areas are going to turn off, and then the other areas that were off in the day are going to become unlocked at night, and that's where you battle all the trainers. All the people who played this preview played it on the Nintendo Switch 2, and they did all say that the game runs incredibly smooth at a buttery 60 FPS, and that they saw no types of performance drops or frame rate stutters or anything, so that's incredibly good news, especially coming from Scarlet and Violet on like the base Nintendo Switch, where every preview, even back then, like before the game even came out, they were all saying how the game is running terribly and there's a lot of performance issues. Thankfully, that's not the case anymore. It looks like the trainer customization inside of this game is going to be massive, and there's going to be so many different styles of clothing and hairstyles and things that you can put on, so that's really cool. And it looks like they're also not going to be locked to the gender, so hopefully that means that you can put on like any type of outfit that you want, because I know with like original Pokemon X and Y, that was like one of the biggest things that people said was like the boy had like 2 different designs. It was very bland and basic, and then the girl designs were like 50 million different clothing options and lots of cool things that you could do. So hopefully this time everybody has all of the options and you can pick and choose what you want. Pokemon Legends Arceus had a really awesome menu where you could switch out the movesets for your Pokemon at any time, and that is also going to be returning to Pokemon Legends ZA, so at any time in your party you can just open up this menu and be able to switch out the movesets that you want and different moves that you want to add to your Pokemon or switch them for something else, so that's really nice and it adds a lot of convenience, so I'm very happy that that's going to be returning. Now in the Rogue Mega Evolution battles, by collecting the Mega Energy that's scattered on the ground, that's how you fill up the little meter that's in the bottom right corner, and once it gets full all the way, you can do a Mega Evolution of your own. However, it seems like that meter is also going to have another use, where you can actually spend a little bit of the energy, and by pressing the plus button, it's going to turn all of your attacks into plus moves, and this already happens when you Mega Evolve your Pokemon anyway, but by having plus moves, the moves are going to be more effective with I think better range, and they're just going to be more powerful in general. Now by getting all of these already when you Mega Evolve, some people might be thinking like, isn't it just better to save it then until you get to the Mega Evolution, and then that way you can use them there? And that does seem to be the case, but I feel like the real use for this is going to come for Pokemon that don't have Mega Evolutions. So for example, if you send in like a Talonflame, you can use some of that Mega Meter still to deplete it and then be able to get like a plus powered version of like Brave Bird or something, and that's going to do more damage. So that's going to be useful for Pokemon, I guess, that can't Mega Evolve, and so I think that that could also be pretty nice. Now, I think this was already in Legends Arceus, but if you're busy with a wild Pokemon battle and some other wild Pokemon notice you, they can also jump into the battle as well. So even if you're having a 1v1 battle with a wild Pokemon, if like group of other Pokemon see you nearby, then they can also jump in and they can easily turn into like a 4v1. They've also thought about how healing might be really broken inside of this game if you can just use items from your bag. So once you use an item from your bag, there's also going to be a bag cooldown until you can use another item from your bag too. So in a traditional Pokemon game, you can just keep spamming revives and full restores until your opponent runs out of PP. But because inside of this game there is no PP and there's just going to be a cooldown, every single move can still come out after the cooldown is up. And it seems like you can't just be spamming full restores and revives and stuff. And even if you do that, you're going to have a cooldown until you can use an item again, so that is really nice and it is going to add some challenge. Now with the different attacks that people got to use inside of the previews, we actually have a lot of information about some of the attacks that have changed for how they're going to work inside of this real-time combat system. So one of the things that we learned is that you're actually going to have Protect work like a parry attack now, where Protect is just going to instantly come out when your Pokemon uses it, and it's going to protect you for like a set amount of time from any attack until the Protect goes down. So that's kind of cool because if you have like a lot of Pokemon that are maybe attacking at you, you can just put up a Protect and you're going to block like every attack coming at you for a couple of seconds, so that's pretty cool. Toxic Spikes looks like it's actually going to set like literal poison traps on the battlefield, and if the Pokemon like runs into it, that's how they're going to get poisoned. So you can maybe even like lure other Pokemon to run into it with your Pokemon, and that's how you can strategically use that, so that is really interesting also. In the traditional Pokemon battle system, Whirlwind was an attack that would force you to switch out your Pokemon and randomly send in another Pokemon for you, but in Legends ZA with the real-time format, it's basically just going to be like a very powerful gust of wind that's going to push back the Pokemon and also make them spin around. So this could actually be pretty cool if you want to like push them into a trap, or if you want to push them into a hazard or something, and it has a completely different purpose than how it does in previous games, and it seems like a lot of different moves are going to work differently, so that could actually make like the actual meta for this game really different with what attacks are going to be really good, and it's just going to be really fun to kind of discover all of the new ways to use some of these attacks that we all know. Now a lot of moves take a couple of seconds for like the animation to build up until the attack comes out, but it seems like priority moves are basically just going to come out almost instantaneously. So a move like Quick Attack or Mach Punch, the animation for that is going to be extremely fast for how quick it is for you to hit your opponent, but a move like Flamethrower might take a couple of seconds, so that's going to be kind of how they do priority inside of this game. It looks like all of the attacks have different ranges also, and that might add some strategy into the gameplay as well, because for example, if a move like Hydro Pump does a lot of damage, but the range isn't that good and you have to be very close to the Pokemon to use it, but a move like Bubble Beam you can use from even far away and it still does a good amount of damage, maybe it might be worth to have Bubble Beam now instead of Hydro Pump, so that might be pretty interesting to kind of find out how all of that's going to work inside of this game too. Now, as we're wrapping up here and going into the cons and complaints, it seems like a few people mentioned that the day and night cycle inside of this game basically like resets all of the Pokemon back to full HP when it triggers. So I think in a few of them, it mentioned how like they were battling against an alpha Pokemon, they got it down to red HP, they were doing really well, and then the day and night cycle kicked in and it went from daytime to nighttime, and all of a sudden that alpha Pokemon got all of its HP restored just because it turned into night. So I don't know if that's kind of like a bug or just an issue, and maybe that's not going to be there in the actual version of the game, but I could see maybe a little bit of frustration for that, like if you're doing really well and in like a difficult fight and then all of a sudden the day night cycle just resets everything like it didn't happen, that might be pretty annoying. Now, by far, pretty much the biggest con that I've seen from really every single article when they were talking about the negatives and cons is that they're not really a fan of the city atmosphere inside of this game, because the entire game is just going to take place in Lumio City, which we've known about. And of course, even coming from Pokemon Legends Arceus, which had so many different types of areas where you had like the Obsidian Fieldlands as just like a basic grassy area, you had a deserty area, you had like a beachy area, a snowy area, a mountain area. There's a lot of cool things, and that's kind of one of the fun things about a Pokemon game is traveling around the world and discovering like forests and caves and snowy areas and deserts and all of that. But inside of this game, everything is literally just inside of a city. And I can definitely understand why that might be worrying for some people, but for me personally, as long as the main adventure and the story is super interesting and just keeps me very invested and having a lot of fun with the gameplay and everything, it's not really going to upset me too much if the entire game is just in Lumio City. Like, some of my favorite games are the Spider-Man games, and that game literally just takes place in New York City. The main story, the boss fights, everything just happens in New York City, but because the game is just so much fun to play and the gameplay is so cool with like swinging around the entire city, using like your web swings and all of that, it's just a lot of fun, and I don't really mind it because of that, because just playing as Spider-Man and doing all of that is very satisfying. So if I can get a similar type of enjoyment just out of Pokemon Legends EA, then it's not really going to be a big problem for me. And finally, people did say that the areas for the wild zones inside of the city are much smaller than the areas in Pokemon Legends Arceus, so if you were hoping for an area like as big as Obsidian Fieldlands to just roam around in and find Pokemon, that's not going to be the case inside of this game. But they did also say that this game has way more verticality compared to Legends Arceus because of all of the buildings and skyscrapers and things that you can climb, so you can still find a lot of rare Pokemon and stuff on top of those. But with that, there you go guys, that is pretty much all of the new information that came out for Pokemon Legends ZA from all of the different previews. If you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well. I would really appreciate it. It took me a lot of time to research everything and compile everything together for this video for you guys, so I would really appreciate it if you click the like button and subscribe. Comment down below and let me know what you guys think about all of this. What are you really excited for with Pokemon Legends ZA? How do you feel about all of this? Definitely be sure to comment down below and let me know. But if you don't have anything to say about it, just comment your favorite emoji down below for some engagement. I would really appreciate it. Go follow me on Twitter at @Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.